Last week we talked about whether or not Deshaun Watson was going to have his first true breakout game as a Cleveland Brown. And at the time I had said, Steelers defense is tough to do it against. But if you look ahead, and I should never look ahead, but I did, Tennessee's pass defense is weak. The weather's going to be perfect on Sunday. Nick Chubb's not playing because he's hurt, which means it may be a more pass-happy offense. If I'm a chef looking to make a master dish, this game against this opponent in this stadium with this weather has all the ingredients to come together as Deshaun Watson's breakout game. Am I crazy for thinking that way?
By the way, on this topic, I just saw this quote. Deshaun Watson is speaking right now. He just said...
Why was he moved from yesterday, by the way?
He did Thursdays last year. Wednesday's normally the day quarterbacks talk.
No, I thought I saw something earlier yesterday where he was going to talk.
He was going to talk. Yeah, he's done that last year where he talked on Thursdays. Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
He said the biggest issue through 2 games has been he's not been on the same page with everyone. Line, receivers, coaches. There's a clip. Can we play a clip from the press conference or no, Mike?
Is it on Twitter?
Yeah.
If you DM it to us on Twitter, yes,
I'm going to DM it to you right now. But that's not great.
No, you've had all off season and 2 weeks to get on the same page. That's an excuse, but it's not
a good one.
It's not excusable.
It's not a good one.
And he's making excuses. I don't love that.
Well, you got to say something when you play as terrible as he's played.
I've been absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
I have not earned my money. I need to and will be better, and everything I do during every second of my day is focused on that.
I think he's blaming himself here, though.
I don't know.
We got to hear the quote. I was just reading it. But
to me,
who tweeted out, Paul?
When we hear it, we'll know.
Yeah.
But to me, if you say
what's that?
It's been poor communication.
I tweeted it. I DM'd it to you, Mike.
Two parties to communication. If you say we have not been on the same page and that's on me, that's falling on the sword.
I think that's what he said. I think he was blaming himself.
Okay, maybe he did. We'll decide when we hear it.
We're pulling it up in 1 sec. Give us about 60 seconds.
Because I mean, he is the biggest reason they lost.
He is the reason that they lost. I mean, no question.
There's 100,000 different metrics you can use and pull, and Mike was going over numbers with us before the show of where he ranks and everything. The one that I pulled up after the game Monday night, EPA expected points on dropbacks, he's the second worst in the league. The Browns are losing point every time he drops back.
Yep.
And his EPA through 2 games is minus, I'm doing this off memory, minus 0.44, I think, or minus 0.42. The only I think he's 4.4. He's minus 0.44.
That's like Justin Fields.
He's worse than Zach Wilson. The only quarterback worse than him in EPA is Kenny Pickett, who is like off the charts bad. He's like minus 0.62.
I'd like to see what his number is going back to his week 11.
I could figure it out.
Year.
I could probably.
I bet it's got to be one of the worst in the league.
I'm sure it is.
Definitely.
But think about that. Deshaun is second worst at 0.44, negative 0.44.
Yeah.
Pickett is negative 0.62.
Yeah, that's
like
crazy. Everyone
else. There's like 4.4, 4.2, 4.0, 3.8. Like they're all tightly bunched. And then here's Pickett.
Yeah, I know what I wanted to ask you before we hear this clip. We know that Deshaun Watson was brought here to be elite.
Yep.
And he hasn't been elite.
Nope.
And so before you can't wash your hands from this experiment. This paint is on your hands for 5 years.
Yes.
You're stuck.
Yes. This is like gasoline.
It is. It's not coming off. So what I thought of yesterday was, okay, he's not going to be elite. At least he hasn't shown us any signs that he's ever going to be elite again. This team and this roster should be good enough, particularly when they had Nick Chubb. Just manage the game. Just be Baker Mayfield. You don't have to be the reason your team wins, but you cannot be the reason your team loses.
That's not a good example because Baker threw more picks than anybody.
But it's horrifying to say that.
Baker Mayfield isn't going to be the home run quarterback.
I know, but you're Jason's example of Jimmy Garoppolo would actually be a better one.
Well, there's a million game managers. You've heard that.
Baker's not a game manager. He's a turnover machine.
It is. If he doesn't fumble and he doesn't throw the pick six, and I know the pick six, someone said yesterday the pick six was actually dipped at the line. Maybe it was. I didn't.
It was. If you go back and look at it frame by frame, it was tipped ever so slightly.
I mean, it might have moved the ball just enough to make it an interception. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't turn the ball over, we win.
Oh, all right.
So don't throw for 350 and 5 touchdowns. Just don't throw for 2 picks.
You're right. Baker's just a bad example because he turns the ball over more than any quarterback in football.
Baker's team is 2-0.
Okay, that's 2 games. Jay.
Okay, well.
Is it
right
not
now, Baker's
is it not a fact that Baker has turned the ball over as much, if not more, than any quarterback in football since he came into the league?
I'm guessing because you're asking that, yes, but I don't care. What
I do care. You can't use him as an example. It's a bad
what he's
example.
done this year.
I know what
It's
Jay's
2
saying.
games.
You know what I'm saying.
No, I know
the question was to you.
Yeah, I know what Jay's saying.
Can they do that?
Well, it's horrifying to think that way.
I know
because
it
of
is,
everything
but-
that you've given up. And here's how I would answer that. Kevin Stefanski got the absolute best out of Baker Mayfield and Jacoby Brissett. They had the best quarterback rating seasons of their careers under him. That tells me, and everyone thinks I'm a shill for Stefanski. I get that. But if you got the best out of Baker and Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun's playing like this, that's a quarterback problem. It's not a system problem.
Yeah,
it's
this
a quarterback
guy elevates
problem.
quarterbacks.
Yes. He puts them in the best position to win and gets the most out of them. Whatever talent they have, he squeezes out of them. We have proof of that of multiple quarterbacks. But yet it's not working with Deshaun. That tells me it's not a coaching problem. Right. It's a Deshaun problem.
I don't think you can give Stefanski a total pass
on
it.
Nobody gets a total pass. Nobody gets a total pass.
Because it's not like Baker was great the whole time he was here. He was great for
but as you said yesterday,
everybody could be better. And Kevin's going to wind up getting fired if this thing goes off the rails.
Right.
For sure. But
go ahead, Mike.
My only point is Kevin has proven he can get the best out of quarterbacks. This is a Deshaun thing, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
So this is a quote from his press conference today. Anthony, you could play it whenever you're ready. Mike, take it full.
For myself, it's just being on the same page with everybody else, and that's just going with the protection-wise to the coverage-wise to what we're thinking about with Kevin. If it's going to be a 4-down situation, if it's a 3rd-down situation, if I need to take the shots, if I don't need to take the shots, and things like that. So just being able to just continue to grow and learn, and that's the biggest thing for me. And that's the part of this game. It's the NFL. Every week is different. Every week is a new challenge, and you have to continue to grow and continue to get better.
As you've gone on. Tough to hear.
It was a little hard to hear.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly my bad.
He didn't.
Not at all.
He didn't. And like
and it actually sounds like some of the burner tweets. Actually,
how long do we have to wait for him to learn and grow?
I mean,
there were a lot of people who thought he'd be great when he first came in last year. He wasn't. We gave him 6 games last year. He sucked in all of those games. Like, how much longer? This whole offseason, I heard from all the Browns apologists, it's going to be different.
I agree with you.
He's going to be great. They got the full offseason.
To be fair, you said that you thought he was going to be great.
Exactly.
Yeah, to be fair.
I did think he'd be great.
And Zach Jackson was the one in practice going, guys, this doesn't look good. Yeah. Guys, something's wrong here.
I told you guys, now look, he might turn it around and have a great year.
He could.
It's still, there's so much football to be played. But I remember when our producer upstairs at Channel 3 was talking to me about what was going on in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And he basically used a lot more colorful language, but he basically was saying he's not it.
Yeah.
He is not it.
That's a lot.
Because he's had a lot of time to get ready for these workouts at the start of the season, and it just isn't there.
The messaging from inside the Browns was, wait till you see this.
I know.
Everything's awesome. Everything's great.
Yep.
A lot like Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. Wait till you see this. And the people who were seeing it every day were going, the Emperor's not wearing any clothes.
Don't oversell.
I say he's got a half a season to prove the turnaround. But in the end, they have to pay him forever. However, there's going to come a point. Like, if he sucks this whole season, you can't just say, well, he's our quarterback for the next 5 years. You can't do that.
You have to.
No, you don't.
No, well, you're stuck.
It's crazy.
You're stuck with him this year and next year, period.
Yeah, because you've got to at least get past the halfway point. I mean, after 3 years, okay, it's Jimmy's money, the punitive side of that is the salary.
I don't have the dead cap thing in front of me, but next year, again, $64 million.
I hear you. But
so,
if he sucks.
So what's the total cap number expected to be?
Oh, for the team?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head.
It goes up about 12, 15
But
million
that's
every
why,
year.
and again, I'm working on something. Hopefully I'll have it out next week on kind of looking at this. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who's like, they're following the Eagles model, which makes sense because AB came from Philly. A lot of them came from Philly. But you have to be very careful on which contracts you restructure because once you restructure a guy, you're stuck with him. In terms of cap and dead cap money, if he turns out bad, it really kills you on a restructure. And again, it goes back to they never touched Nick's contract, which was curious over the summer. Yeah. So it's Bull, to your point, no matter how bad it gets, I think you're stuck with him this year and next year.
No, you are.
And then maybe you can look at some sort of relief or figure out what to do. We're a long ways from that. But
we are.
But it's worth the 30-second
What I meant was, if he sucks this whole year, you have, even though you'd have to play him again, you'd fire Stefanski and give another coach a chance to turn him around. But you'd have to, at least in somewhere in Andrew Berry's mind, or if he gets fired, whoever takes over, start thinking about okay, who could be the next guy?
That's exactly it.
You have to start thinking about it, even if you can't
What's the
actually do it.
What's the exit strategy?
Again, yeah.
We're a
it's
long
way to
ways
go.
off. We're a long.
But the fact that we're even having that conversation, and by the way, it's fair to have it.
Oh, I promise you, inside the walls,
They're saying
panicking. It's not a daily topic, but I promise you, there has been a worst case scenario exit strategy of how what do we do?
Who was the bus driver on the "We've got to get Deshaun"? In my mind and what I've heard, I think it's Jimmy. But I don't know. You know far more than I do. Is that right?
This is complicated. I have been told by multiple people that Andrew was sold on him first. AB was the first one to say, we have to look at this. Let's look at this. Let's do this. Now, I think Jimmy came back over the top when Deshaun told them no. Jimmy came back over the top and said, give him whatever it takes. Give him whatever he wants.
Was that because Baker, after Deshaun came out and said, I'm not going to Cleveland.
Right.
Then Baker said, okay, I'm going to flex my chest and use my hammer.
Right.
And said, I'm not going back. There was no...
Yeah, but that didn't happen until after the trade.
No. It was immediate. It was Deshaun said, I'm not going to Cleveland. Then Baker said, I've got a card to play, and I'm going to play it.
But they felt like they had to upgrade from Baker.
That's exactly it. I mean, they felt like they had to upgrade from him.
Stefanski didn't.
I don't believe that.
If you believe what he said, at the time, Stefanski said he felt he could win with Baker Mayfield. He had done it.
But he's not going to come out and say we got to move on from 6. He's not good enough. He has to say that in the moment. I do think internally they all were in agreement. We have to try and do better than this. And
so if it's wrong, everybody goes.
And well, Jimmy's not going to.
Now, the one person that would need most to go.
And I think
because
Jimmy's
he's the only one that's got his hands in all of our misery and failure.
And Jimmy's the one I think who came back and said, guarantee the 230, do whatever it takes.
Is he ever going to sell
him whatever it takes? No. No chance.
He's dying with that in his portfolio.
No, he's not selling. There's no. They keep accruing teams.
I know they do.
So they're not. They have. That is never going to happen. Jimmy Haslam is the owner of the Browns, and then whenever there's a transition, it'll probably be JW.
Oh my God.
It'll probably
Why would it be JW and not his
if he was let go by the Browns today, which would never happen?
Never happen.
How many of the other 31 teams would be lining up to hire him?
0.
Why would his actual daughter not take over and JW?
Well, what does she have to do with the team now?
I don't. What does JW don't know his ass from his elbow?
But I'm saying like he's involved in the decision making now.
I guess. The bottom line is, if Watson ends up being a disaster, everybody's going to go back and kill the Browns for making the trade, and it will be a terrible trade.
It's already happening.
They had to get a quarterback.
They had to do something.
They had to get a quarterback.
Yes.
I understand why they did it. I thought it was a brilliant trade. Right now it looks bad, but they had to make a move.
I will never. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not going to be fake and like turn around and kill him. I'm not going to run from it. I want him to move on from Baker.
100%.
I didn't think Baker was good enough. I still don't. I think it was the right move to move on from him.
Yeah.
They had to take the risk because of 20 years of incompetence.
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure it out any other way.
Right.
And the clock was ticking on Miles and some of these other guys. They had to do something. He was available. I get why they did it. I understand
you said
the
20
outcry.
years of incompetence. There was 1 year of competence.
But yes, there was, and Baker was fine that year. But
well, not
being
one.
There,
they had a year of competence with Derek Anderson.
I'm just telling you, being there every day.
20 years. I'm saying
being there. You're referring to the Baker year in the playoff game and the playoff win, yeah,
of course.
But being in that building and knowing enough of what I know, nobody thought he was like. Nobody. It was too many excuses. It wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough. In pressure moments, I had all the stats. I can go back and find them and pull them up.
How did it work then in 21? How did it work?
What do you mean, how did it work,
It's
Jay?
the same way.
I'm asking Jason a question.
But do I have to stay uninvolved in the conversation?
No, when I want to ask a question of you,
can I ask a question too?
When Jason answers, I would love to hear your response.
Here's what I would say. Derek Anderson had a great year too.
Sure.
And one great year does not make a great quarterback.
Exactly.
And I think we've talked about it on the show before.
Derek had a great wide receiver.
It's that bar of consistency that separates. Everyone can have a good 300 game here and there. Baker played well 2 games in a row, and full credit to him. He's had a great start to this year. I have no faith that it'll last all year, and if it does, I have no faith that he can repeat it next year because we have enough evidence of who he is. Like, this is who he is. And I got killed for saying this when Baker was like rolling and everyone loved him. I said he's Derek Carr. There's some years where he could be like top 8, and there's other years he's going to be 15 to 20. And that's Derek Carr's had some really good years. He's had some really bad years. That's who Baker
playoff
is.
games Derek Carr's won?
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying he's had some really good years.
Okay, so Bull, how did that happen in 21?
In 20?
20.
Or 20, yeah, with the bad quarterback. And
you know how? I missed the most obvious answer.
Yeah.
The COVID year.
The COVID year.
Yeah.
The most obvious answer, nobody was in the building.
Yeah.
And people like laugh when I say that. Players have told me there was no noise. It was only the essential people were in the building. There were no distractions. There was no nonsense. It was all football all the time.
You could go to a lot of years and a lot of teams and find an anomaly with a quarterback making the playoffs one time, right?
Sure.
The Bills made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor. The Texans made the playoffs with T.J. Yates. We could go on and on. There's always these examples. And by the way, as much as I don't think Baker's the answer, I never said Baker was terrible. Never said he was terrible.
You didn't?
He's Jed Wills. He's average.
I don't think he's even average.
Don't go there. Speaking of that,
I thought Baker would go to Carolina and be a bottom-tier starting quarterback. I didn't think he'd be benched.
I actually thought he should have stayed in L.A. I thought that was a great spot for him.
I did too.
They obviously didn't want him.
Yeah, they didn't.
Well, it's not so much
I
that
think
they
he had an
obviously didn't want him.
opportunity.
They thought that Goff still had something left, and
Stafford.
Or Stafford, I mean, and who knows? I mean, it's at times this year he's looked like he's
Stafford's
certainly
played
had something
great so
left.
far.
And I think Baker saw an opportunity in Tampa to go win the starting job and be a starting quarterback right away.
Yeah.
So I don't fault him for that.
Before we move to fence riders, let me ask you this, because I set this topic up and we kind of went off, and that's fine. But real quick, around the horn. Are the ingredients there for Sunday to be his breakout game? Am I over?
Yes. No, it's obvious. Great weather, terrible back end of the defense, last in the NFL last year, bottom feeders this year. They need a big performance. If he doesn't have a big game here, you start looking ahead and say, when does it happen?
Because now you got Baltimore and San Francisco coming.
Yes, you can almost assure that he's not going to be his best against those two defenses.
Yeah.
I think the question is in that vein, and I agree. I think we all agree this is an easy opportunity for him this week. When does it? I feel like Jay has already reached a point where you're like, it's never going to happen. I feel like you've reached there.
No, I haven't made that conclusion yet. I'm far more at the beginning of the year when you guys were saying we think he's going to be great, and I said I'm not going to dismiss the last 6 games and pretend they didn't happen. He prepared for those games. He practiced. He had a whole 11 off weeks to get ready. I didn't see it. So what I said coming into this year was, I think he's going to continue to be more of that guy than more of Houston. And every bad performance, like you said earlier, the more we have to wait to see it, the more unlikely it becomes that we'll ever see it.
So the
and
question
that's where I am. I haven't written it off, but
when does it come to the point? Like, I'm not at the point yet where I'm saying, there's no chance he's going to turn it around. I will admit that after the Pittsburgh game, it was the first time I really thought, man, this might not happen. And I had not one, as bad as he was last year, I never thought that.
I did.
Even in the rain in Cincinnati, I didn't think that. After Pittsburgh, I was like, this might not happen. How many more games do you think you have to go for you guys before you're like, it's over? There's no way he's turning it around.
I mean, we're still quite a ways from that,
and we're stuck with them too.
Yeah, you're stuck.
No, I know that.
Like
but
if to your point, if he was Baker and DTR was on the roster, maybe 6-7 games of that nonsense, and then you say, let's go to DTR. But you've got so much invested in him, you are stuck in cement.
Yeah.
You can't move.